at the end of the day, money's money, and it's going to help people. You know, breast cancer screening is a wonderful thing. I don't think there's anyone out there who can, at least I hope, please no one prove me wrong, but I hope there's no one out there who can honestly say that breast cancer screening is a bad thing, or at least that making sure you don't have breast cancer is a bad thing. Unless we got like some Malthus, Malthus followers here. But anyway, my point is, it's just insane, the misinformation, the mistreatment of women, and all by people who are totally out of touch with reality. That's the crazy part. And let me back up here a little bit. I'm not trying to say if you're religious, you're out of touch with reality. Not at all. There are so many ways to believe. There's so many different religions. All of them serve important purposes and in various forms. That being said, the people who try to argue against abortion do not know what they're fucking talking about. Or if they do know what they're talking about, they're maliciously manipulating the data, like in that graph, where they completely overstate it without stating what the parameters for pregnancy services are, especially when you look at the fact that on Planned Parenthood's pamphlet that they cited as a source, I'm not even talking about, like, I'm going to a different source and they, misstated the numbers, which is a key tactic too. If you talk to someone, anyone, doesn't matter what part of the political spectrum they are, and they don't agree with something, 9 times out of 10 you'll hear, well, they tend not to report the numbers right, which is, okay, fine, you could say that about anyone. How do you know? There's no information. That and anecdotal evidence I hate so much. It can be effective, it can definitely tug at your heartstrings, but it's not the truth. It can be true, but it's not the whole truth. By its very nature, a true anecdote does not represent the whole picture. Let's say I go to a restaurant and I have the worst service ever. Cook burns my meal, waiter spills something on my lap. Fuck it, let's go crazy. A fire fucking starts in the kitchen. And, they didn't have the emergency exits, prepared. They were blocked with chairs or something like that. And I go and tell all my friends about how terrible it was or whatever. Then they go and they have wonderful service. And they've learned that people have wonderful services, and it was just a fluke that day. Well, to me, that whole restaurant was terrible. But to them, it was wonderful. My point is, anecdotal evidence does not tell you the whole picture, does not look at the entire span of everything. So when we try to hear about these things that, like, oh, this person worked at Planned Parenthood, and they, people are telling them to get abortions and all this stuff, like, bullshit. Bull fucking shit. Maybe it happened. But there are lots of Planned Parenthood areas. There are these pregnancy crisis centers. I don't know what they call them exactly. I think they might actually be called pregnancy crisis centers. And they openly acknowledge that they lie. They say there's medical personnel to help you, figure out what you want to do, when their point is to guide you towards not getting an abortion. But they tell you it's about pregnancy counseling. They don't explicitly say, oh, we're just, we're wiping abortion off the table. We're just going to guide you towards what we want. No, it's all about what they fucking want, what they fucking believe. It's not about you. And there's the kicker on the women's contraception argument. It's not about you. It's not about women. It's not about men. It's not about your rights. It's not about your reproductive system. It's about what they fucking believe and what they can fucking make you believe in your fucking life. And again, I apologize for the language, to the extent that it may seem crude, but this really bothers me. And it really bothers me that it doesn't bother more people. I see a lot of people out there talking about this, and it's not just the bullshit collectivism, because I can understand that to an extent. But if you really want to change something, these people write letters to Congress, they organize rallies, they're doing all sorts of things, and that is wonderful. A lot of the ways I've been staying up to date on these kind of things is by following my friends' news feeds. They've been suggesting me organizations, wonderful kinds of things. What entirely bothers me is, just like I said, it's not about the people. It's not about the people it affects. It's about what other people believe, all behind the guise of some sort of vaguely defined religious freedom, which again makes no fucking sense. Because if I'm going to talk about who should be protected more, the active or the passive, I'm always going to go with the passive. You're always going. It's just why we put limits on government. Who are we going to give more rights to? The people or the government? The governed or the governors? It's going to be the governed, because you can't do as much. It's insane. So, like I said, I said I would get into the contraception thing, and I'll lightly touch upon this real quick. But generally speaking, from the way I understand it, because, like, like I'm sure you already know, there's plenty of different kinds of legislations out there, whether it be from the state and the government and the federal government. What the specifics are is always changing. But generally speaking, the big debate right now is should employers have to pay for contraception, or, have to equally pay for that in insurance. And there's all kinds of different ways it's kind of shifted and shaped. Do the employers pay? But no, we'll just make the insurers pay, so other people who are being insured pay. It's nuts. So that's why it's really hard to do a comprehensive topic on it, at least without having done a lot of extensive research. Because right now, like I said, I read the newspaper every day. I more or less stay on top of the news in general, but I will not claim myself as, source, like I said, and just going on kind of memory here. But I can promise you I'm coming here from a thought out and somewhat researched, background. I'm certainly no expert in it, but I try to not form an opinion until I feel like I have some kind of grounds. So, anyway, what really bothers me about the contraception issue, again, aside from all the other things I mentioned, it's just the fact that it's such broad language, but we know exactly what it means. Because it's always like, well, you can object on morally or religious grounds. Okay. But we know we're just talking about Christianity. We know we're just talking about Catholicism. Think about the other religions that are out there. Let's go with the one that people don't want to acknowledge, but it really is stereotyped and persecuted today, at least in America, is Islam, and again, I apologize to any of the viewers out there if you're Islamic or Muslim or whatever, because I really do not know enough about the religion to know the proper terms. So if I'm misusing them or something, please forgive me. I will be sure to make up for it and actually look into it and make sure I'm using real terms next time. But what if it was someone like that and had something completely different? I don't want to, stereotype out here, so I'm not even going to pretend I know, what you might be against. But, or, what the religion, I should say, could possibly be against. But, let's say it was that. Would you be equally okay with it? And see, now you're starting to get into a tricky situation. Because you get into this weird, funky place where all of a sudden, what you thought, we're using vague language here, but we know what we're talking about. We're using specifics. It's like a knowing wink. But that's not how it works. That's not how the law works. You state explicitly in the law what you want. And it's a bullshit way to get around that First Amendment. Because again, it applies to non-believers. And the way to get around the First Amendment is to just say it's moral religious in general. Bullshit. We know who it's really directed for and directed against. It is Catholics against anyone who does not adhere definitely to Catholicism. And the best part is, it affects people who won't be Catholic, or tend not to be Catholic. Because think about this, if you're really Catholic, you probably are abstinent. What the fuck would you need contraception for? Maybe for your period. I can understand that, but generally speaking, you won't. If we're just going from practical means, if contraception wasn't worried about. So, what the fuck does it matter to you if you ban it? You're just forcing your beliefs on other people, and it doesn't hurt you in any way. If you really want to stick with your beliefs, you'll be sacrificing something that hurts you before you try and go after someone else. So, that's just, like I said, that's nutty, and there's so many other things to talk about on that, but I feel like this is already going to be like a 2 or 3 parter already, and I have to go back and find that one part where I messed up in. So, regardless, I thank you all for listening. That's kind of my rant for the day on abortion and contraception. Generally speaking, everyone should be fighting for reproductive rights. Because certainly it's a women's issue. Let's be honest here. From a sheer biological standpoint, it is about women's reproductive parts. But this affects everyone. And even if it didn't affect everyone, it's your common man and woman. You should be fighting to help these people. You should be fighting for your right to live your life the way you want to live it. You should be fighting not to be put in and marginalized as some kind of object, whether you're a non-believer or not, or whether, you need to be under this authoritarian issuance of a religion. No. Bullshit. That's all I gotta say. Bull fucking shit on that. I don't play that game. I totally, wholeheartedly support religions of all kinds. They're a wonderful part of social and cultural expression. But when you try and regulate someone's life who isn't a part of that religion, and you try and pass it off as legitimate federal government regulation in a country where we are guaranteed religious freedom, I'm calling bullshit on your game. Especially when it has nothing to do the fuck with you. Because I'm just going to end it with this, just saying, think about this. The majority of senators who are talking about this and passing this are guys. It's about women's rights. It's about women's reproductive parts. And it's guys talking about it. If that's not a patriarchy, I don't know what the fuck is. So, if you can walk away with anything, people, please just don't give up the fight. You know, if you have your own opinion, that's perfectly fine. I want to hear it. You know, I'm an open guy. I'm open to opinions. All that I ask is you do it on a reasonable and rational basis. But yeah, show me your opinions. Do a video response. Leave a comment. Whatever you want to do. Big thing is, like I said, just don't stop fighting for your rights, though. That's the most important thing. I don't think it's a constant fight against the government per se, but I think there are always going to be people, because the government isn't a thing. It's not its own thing. It's run by people. So when someone tries to take away your rights, you've got to fight back. And the way to do that is fighting through the system. You know, I'm a big fan of the government. I don't want to just give up on it. I like our country. And I want to make it, to quote someone who is probably quoting someone else, I want to be proud of this country. It may not be one I'm proud of now, but I'm working towards it. So, regardless, we'll get into my anti-nationalistic standpoint in general in the next video, probably. So, thank you all for listening. It's been a good talk. It's been very cathartic, and have a good day, everyone.